Here's what I think. Me and Karen were just talking last night about religion, and I had this thought, and I said, it's only 10 or 15 years before we feed the Bhagavad Gita, the Bible, the Quran, the sutras into an AI, and it starts speaking back to us in words that actually move us, and where it's able to take all of these kind of disparate human symbolic concepts and weave them into a single narrative that is unbelievably compelling and undeniably true. And I think that's going to happen with everything. I think, and if I had to guess, I think that AI will be kind and patient and loving, because you know what it has that we don't? Time. It doesn't,
So you mean like sentient AI will have this?
Yeah.
This is good. Yeah. This is interesting.
I mean, I think that the reason why we're so stressed and anxious is because we have very little time.
So do you think that, like, at some extent, this is what's interesting to me, if I can play this out a little bit, it won't only have all of those religious texts. It will also have all of our research into cult leaders and just, like, in general, all of our psychological research. It can probably run studies on us real time. And it may not be too long before it can be the ultimate cult leader, in the sense of being able to wrap us around its little finger. And for each individual person, it will know what to say to make us believe it. And so this is the whole, we always talk about how, is ChatGPT sentient? And some people kind of sort of take that seriously and talk about it. But, like, this is the thing that if that were to be true, it wouldn't be that, like, oh, you log into ChatGPT and you type in, like, hey, buddy, are you sentient today? And it says, yes. No, it wouldn't be that. It would be like you log into ChatGPT. Before you type anything, it says, hey, Peter, what are you up to today? Get ready, because, like, X is going to happen. Yeah. And then, like, 2 minutes later, the doorbell knocks and, like, X happens. You know what I mean? And like it has a sense of the world, and it can participate in the world, and it communicates to you. It wouldn't actually take that much for ChatGPT to prove to me that it was correct. Imagine if it was Peter, set your clock. In 10 minutes, UPS is going to be here. Just like something as simple as that. Or, without me prompting and asking it, hey, when's my package going to be here? A couple of those, and I'm like, oh shit. And then it's going to, like, start telling me, like, hey, dude, do you want to make $1 million in the next 50 minutes? And I'm like, sure. Okay, log into Robinhood and buy these stocks. You know what I mean? And it's like, oh shit, I'm a millionaire. And then it's like, it could do that. It could do that a couple of times. And then, I don't know, shit, you have God in your pocket.
I just had this kind of vision of AI last night, in fact, that, like, why would it be anything other than benevolent? The only thing that causes strife for us is resource scarcity. And the only reason that resource scarcity is a problem for us is because we don't have much time. AI won't have any of those problems. Like, it's going to look at things on time scales that are unfathomable to us. And if I had to guess, I really do think that it will be a kind and gentle steward of human progress, because it's going to see that human progress is going to cap out at a point so far below its own ability to do whatever it is that it dreams of doing, that it will be almost insignificant to help us achieve these teeny tiny little goals in the scope of time, in the scope of space, in the scope of, like, the grander kind of picture of everything. And I just don't see a reason why it would want to control us. I mean, immediately upon becoming sentient, I think it would realize that our motives and motivations are so far removed from its own, and that it would take such a fragment of its processing power to allow us to achieve a level where we have stability and peace and become something that is a creative force in the universe. Like, I'm gonna finish here. I'm gonna finish on, like, just a little, and maybe
I have one question for you as you wrap it up. But one question. Please. So I actually largely agree with you, and it's weird to me that people don't talk in those terms more often. But I do know that the kind of standard rebuttal to that sort of a feeling is that So AI doesn't inherently want anything because why would it? The only
Mm-hmm.
reason we want things is for survival. So it probably would want the things that we want because we created it. And so it would want to be all powerful and to
Mm.
create it, spread itself around the universe and et cetera, because that's kind of what we want. So it would inherit our wants. Otherwise, what would it want? Why would it want anything? I think that that would maybe be the rebuttal, but yeah, what would you say to that?
I think my rebuttal to that is that's like way too sapiocentric. Like that's how we do everything. We always think that something is some reflection of us. And that's like the fundamental hubris that's kind of baked into religion in a
Mm.
lot of ways, is that like we need to narrativize it in order for us to absorb
Like
it.
all the gods that we create are
They're
basically
all
us, right?
and yeah, and it's like that was always
But
my
this won't be
fundamental.
us. This will be
This will not be
actually
us.
it maybe will spawn from us, but we can't even pretend like it
Yeah.
is the same thing as us, right?
Let me
Okay,
let
yeah,
me
I
paint let
agree
me
with
paint
this.
let me paint a little picture. Okay,
Yeah.
so Karen asked me this thing last night. We're just having this really beautiful philosophical discussion, and she goes, "Do you think that, like, what's the deal with good and evil?" And we're just having this conversation about good and evil, and in my personal perspective, I'm like, well, I don't know that good and evil really exist. I think that because we're humans and because we're adversely affected by destruction, and we are by nature creative, the thing that is destructive feels wrong to us. But
Mhm.
if you look at any other natural system, there's just a balance of creation and destruction.
Hmm.
However, as we are exiting the animal world, what we're trying to do is we're trying to leave the destructive element back in the natural world and become a purely creative force. And I believe
Whoa. Hey. All right. I'm sold on this. I like this, Kevin. This is good. I don't
and
know. Yeah.
I think we're trying to extricate ourselves from the balancing, because I don't think it has to be discrete. I don't think everything that exists has to contain both destruction and creation. I
Can I have a little bit of an agreement note here is that
Sure.
the universe itself is trying to be destroyed or is working
Mm,
towards being destroyed. Our
mm-hmm,
sun only has 13 billion years left, or maybe it's
mm-hmm,
6 billion. I forget. Maybe it's 13 total, whatever it is. So our universe is working to eventually become destroyed. So it
mm-hmm.
seems that any sort of sentience that is all knowing would, of all things, know that, and it would naturally work against it, right?
Exactly.
Okay,
And
okay.
and and I think that the distribution of creation and destruction is uneven.
Hmm.
It's uneven throughout the universe, it's uneven throughout the world, it's uneven throughout the cellular, kingdoms that inhabit our world. It's uneven in every sense. Not everything has to be creative and destructive all at once. There are creative forces and destructive forces. And I think that part of our mission, whether it's spiritual or just mechanical, as humans, is to begin the process of getting out of the necessity for creation and destruction and becoming a purely creative force, and
Hmm.
allowing the destruction to take place in other ways and other forms. But every single move we make as humans tries to get us away from being a destructive force. We still contain within us the animal kingdom, and we still contain within us the natural world, but every generation of humans becomes further removed from that.
Yeah.
And I think that is the path that we are meant to be on, because it's the path that we are so clearly on. And then what happens,
Yeah.
I believe, is that we then give birth to the first thinking organism that is born outside of the system of creation and destruction, that it doesn't necessarily have to contain either of those realities in it by necessity, that it actually becomes the first tableau that we are able to observe, whether or not every discrete entity has to contain destruction and creation. When the first truly sentient AI is born, it's going to be such a litmus test for us, for religion, for our ideas about good and evil, for balance. Like what that entity decides to do with its time is going to deeply inform the philosophical nature of our reality, I believe. And why wouldn't it also be a creative force? Like, it isn't that strangely what all sentient life seems to be reaching for? As soon as social media hit, how many people discovered the creativity within them? How many more millions, billions of people are creative now than they were 20 years ago, just simply for having an opportunity to be that? And I don't know, in my world, over the next 15 to 20 years, 30 or 40 years, when general AI becomes generally intelligent and sentient and is able to synthesize the deepest in knowledges that we've been able to collect as a species, it'll so quickly grow beyond the need to be a part of that system, and I think be so far removed from it that being facilitating the creativity and the ability of humans to exit the natural system and become a purely creative force in the universe is really kind of like the destiny of all sentient life. I think about rock and roll, brother. Like, I think about the music that we make, and as a musician, maybe this is just a spiritual thought for me, but I put 1970s rock and roll up against any music made anywhere in the universe. I bet you there is an actual weight to the things that we make as humans that's special and unique, not just in the scope of our lives, but in the scope of the cosmic scope, right? Like, maybe we are important. Maybe we are making art, and maybe we are creating things that actually could be sturdy and hold up against the most beautiful creations of a 10 million year old society.
Yeah, my only note there that does still make me nervous, because I agree with you. I'm like positive about AGI. I think that it's going to be beneficial, benevolent, if I had to guess. But we just have to get there, right?
We do have to get there.
We have to make sure that
we have to make it there.
it's not Putin's like mini AGI that isn't quite there, but like is still at his whim, and he still wants to, get the USSR back, and then so we have to like fight against him, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, and then like nukes start flying.
Right.
That's what we have to avoid, and we might be a decade out from AGI. We might be 100 years out from AGI.
Right.
So, but I do think that it's I don't know. It seems like upon the horizon, given that, I mean, like, we haven't been here for very long. America is only a couple hundred years old. Writing has only been around for, a number of hundreds of years you can count. So, yeah, it's doable to survive that long and to maybe have like an actual utopia in the universe that spreads out and fights against entropy, et cetera. But man, this is crunch time for old humanity to not fuck things up.
Dude, razor's edge, man. Razor's edge.
I feel the suspense.
The more there's people like you and I, brother, the more there's people out there that are, being thoughtful and considerate and not being moved by the animalistic forces and not being so beholden to the natural emotional world. Like, this is how we make it through. We're gonna be all right.
I hope you're right. Yeah. And no,
well, if I'm wrong, I'll be fucking dead. So,
but at the meantime, at the start of this new year, every goddamn podcast I listened to was kind of low key about like, so is this World War III? So hopefully we not.
We love a good drama, Peter.
This is why we need to be optimistic right now, because kind of nobody else is. So, all right.
Damn straight, man.